Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to your Unit 4 webcast. I hope you were all able to get through Mark's material this week. I know that it can be a little tough, so if you have additional questions, be sure to get in touch with me. I'm happy to help however I can. On the prompt this week, it looks like some of you are having trouble coming up with contradictions to Mark's. I just want to mention that if this is an area that's tough for you, you should go back and look at the PowerPoint and also at the Galbraith film on the contradictions of capitalism. You can look at the lecture notes that are posted, Dr. Jurek's lecture notes that are posted on Mark's, which summarizes some of these contradictions in capitalism. The other reading that I would really recommend you use as a gateway to the other readings is the Tucker reading. So this is designed to introduce undergraduate students to Marxist thought, both the positives and the critical insights. So it's an excellent place to start, especially if you're having trouble working your way through Marx. I'm still grading your papers. I apologize, I'm a little bit behind. I'm just today starting to feel human again after getting over being sick. Mostly so far what I've graded, people are doing well. Some people had a tough time following instructions. As I said, it's important for you to follow instructions, things like putting which prompt you were responding to, using headings, carefully proofreading your papers. And so for the most part, people are doing a pretty good job. But for those of you who struggled, it was with things like neglecting to put an introduction as a roadmap to your paper, and things of that nature. So you want to be sure that you look at feedback, read the instructions and the guidelines, and then if you're struggling particularly with the writing aspect of it in terms of clarity, proofreading, editing, etc., I strongly encourage you to reach out to the writing mentorship program. They can help you tips not just for this class but also for future classes. Being able to write coherently and in a way that people can understand is really important. So if that's something that you struggle with, I encourage you to seek out additional assistance. Okay, so in preparation for your Unit 4 quiz, I just have some things I want to bring up to you. Marx is someone who emphasizes the economic basis of society as being pretty much the fundamental foundation for the rest of our social institutions. So for Marx, it's all about the economy. Things that I will be asking you about are the importance of the modes of production. So what does Marx say the modes of production are? What does he mean by mode of production? And so you want to remember that the mode of production is basically the ways that the economy is organized and how things are produced. So as you know, you can be hunting and you can have a hunting and gathering society. You can also have ranked feudal society, or you can have a capitalist society, right? So they each have different modes of production. So think about those and think about for Marx, he thinks that each form, so hunter-gatherer, feudal, capitalist, evolves out of contradictions that were present in whatever state we are in at the moment. So for hunting and gathering societies, they had their own struggles and tensions, and out of that emerged a more dominant class system, which we see in sort of a ranked society under feudalism, and out of the contradictions of feudalism, we see capitalism emerge. And so you want to think about that and think about Marx's material conception of history. So you need to know about the mode of production in order to understand a material concept of or conception of history. You also need to know about the labor theory of value. So these are, you need to recognize what Marx means, or you need to know that where value comes from and what it's about. Okay, so in your PowerPoint lecture, Dr. Jurek talked about 5 types of alienation. So beginning with alienation from the means of production, this is when someone else owns the means of production, and from that they can hire labor and pay them less than what they would make if they produced the product themselves. And so you begin with alienation from the means of productions. Workers lose control over the process, and so on. And so that's 2 types of alienation. So look at the lecture and find out what the other 3 are. It's important for you to know them. I'm also going to ask you questions about Marx and Engels' article, The Socialist Ideal. But again, you can use Dr. Jurek's lecture and notes as a gateway to understand the material. In The Socialist Ideal, Marx and Engels are arguing against their opponents and are arguing in favor of property being collectively owned. They are arguing against this notion of private property. So this piece is trying to argue what they mean by private property, and they are concerned with property that is defined as capital, and that is like the means of production. And so owning the means of production and having control over the means of productions gives you opportunities to hire and exploit labor. So that is what they're talking about. They're taking a stand in there about private property. So that's an important thing to recognize. In the Galbraith film, I'm also going to be asking you a couple questions about the film, which, as you know, is a required link through the unit. And so one of the things that Galbraith it goes over very well in the film is what Marx meant by the concentration of capital. So ownership of the means of production becomes increasingly concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. Galbraith does an excellent job of discussing why that produces constant crises in the economy. So be attentive to that section. And a couple of examples since Galbraith would be, for example, the 2008 financial crisis with the banks. When one bank fails, can have an effect on the entire global economy, hint, hint, which can then produce crisis when they have everything more concentrated, right? Because when one is affected and it has so much concentration, it has a much deeper effect. So not only do they have more power to set prices in terms of deals, so sort of like airlines that become more concentrated, so focus on this concentration of capital. He also talks about the Communist Manifesto recommendations and the irony that he finds in these recommendations. He says, do they sound like extremely radical or revolutionary ideals in today's world? So look at what he has to say about that. And then you also needed to read the Nell and O'Neill's article. And in this piece, they are trying to figure out that in socialism, if people don't have to worry about starving or about food or about shelter, or when you get a communist society where everything is shared, then how do we motivate people to work? So this is what they are looking at. They look at why people may still want to work even if they don't have to worry about starving. Okay, I'm pretty sure that that's it. Make sure that if you're having trouble in class that you let me know so that I can help you in any way that I can. I will again post the podcast next week because you have your Foucault paper due. And what I want to emphasize is before you try to read Foucault for the next unit, that you read the Sarup article first, and that will help you better understand Foucault. Foucault can be a very difficult read to get through. And so first read the Sarup article and look at Dr. Jurk's PowerPoint, and then get to the Foucault and the Foucault paper guidelines, because this can be a gateway to better help you understand Foucault and sort of the complexities of his writing. Okay, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. I hope you all are healthy-ish and that you're enjoying probably the change in weather wherever you are. So have a great day.